Hello, Salon Sleuth fans. My name is Melissa, and my co host is Leslie. We decided we wanted to share our salon stories. We both have an interest in crime stories and a fascination with the psychic world. So settle in each week as we share another story with you. Who knows, you might even learn something.
Today on our show, we have Autumn Edwards. She is a friend. I originally met her when I booked an appointment for a medical intuitive reading. And since then, she has become a licensed acupuncturist. She does Chinese medicine. She does intuitive psychic readings. She does medical readings and a lot of different ways of energy healing. She has even gone to one of my friend's house, and my friend had some activity, some spirits in her home, and she did a clearing and also taught us along the way of how we could do it ourselves. So she was amazing. There's lots of ways to get a hold of her. She has a website. It's anahatamedicine.com. You spell that ANAHATA medicine.com. Her phone number is 503-709-6226, or her email is anahata.medicine@yahoo.com. And here is Autumn Edwards. Hello. Hi, Autumn. I've heard so much about you.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you. I presume all positive things, considering it's from Leslie.
Of course.
It absolutely is. I actually probably heard of you a couple years ago, I think when you were first coming in or something. Because we like to chat about the paranormal when I'm getting my nails done, and I think she knows that I enjoy that kind of stuff. So it was always interesting to hear about you.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you
Because
so
that's
much.
really how it started between the two
Yeah,
of us. I had
very
come
true.
to her at a reading in Northwest Portland.
Right.
And of course, I left thinking that I had a secret, like nobody else knew. And I was like, I felt like I was on fire. And honestly, when I left, I felt like everything was brighter
Oh,
and that like a whole new world kind of opened up. And I left thinking, like, oh my gosh, like I have like a secret superpower, you
You
know?
do.
And then I think later that night or even the next day, I contacted you because I wanted to do a pedicure because I wanted to know you more.
oh, yeah. I remember the whole experience,
Yeah.
and so, and when I say the whole experience, like I remember you as a person. I remember how connected I felt to you. I don't recall like the information that comes through
Yeah.
during the channel because it's not like mine. It's
Yeah.
this other source, right? So that I don't recall. But everything else
Yeah.
was awesome. Like I
Yeah.
just was like, this is an amazing woman, and I'm so excited to know her. So
So
So, Autumn, on that kind of note, like, do you can you tell when other people are open to that energy, or is it just kind of random?
I think it's more random. I've gotten to a point now where I just don't preoccupy myself with concern about whether or not somebody's open to it. It's such a big part of my life
Yeah.
that if I bring it forward, I bring it forward, and if they receive it, great, and if they don't, great. What's interesting is that people often ask me, like, how do you tell people? And they must, you must get a lot of negative reactions. And the truth is, like, more people than not are super excited about it and they want to know more. And I've only ever had one adverse reaction when it came forward about like my spiritual practice or my position with my relationship with God. So, and that says a lot over the last, I don't know, 15 plus years that I've been practicing. So I think people are believers.
Well, and Autumn, that kind of brings up like to me, isn't it your mom who also has these abilities?
Yeah. So my mom has been doing psychic readings for at least 10, 20, I think 30 years now. But I didn't even know about it until after I was grown and moved out of the house.
well, and that's
What?
how I originally heard about you because of your
Oh,
mom.
okay.
And then through Brandy in the salon, there's Autumn. And I was like, what? And then my client who's been on our show multiple times, Karen, she also comes to you
Right.
often. And so I think just the combination, it was going to happen. I was going to meet you eventually anyway. And I was going to ask you, you said that one person that wasn't open to that.
Uh-huh.
Did they not know you ahead of time? Because I would think that if
It's a
anybody,
family member.
oh, it's a family member.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's pretty surprising.
Yeah, and it's fine. I mean, the family member, they love me and everything like that. It's
Yeah,
not a personal thing. It's
yeah.
just, it's more like they're praying for my sinful ways.
Okay, what you're doing is what they would call not right, like against their
like
religion.
heretical, or dancing with the devil. And I
Okay,
just
Yeah.
think it's interesting because, uh, like if you want to talk about the Bible and
Yeah.
how it was written, like those people were prophets and those
yeah,
people were quote psychics, right? And so I think it's humorous
yeah.
to think that
Yes.
those are the only individuals who have direct access to God, who have a direct relationship with the divine. But I love that person, and it's not a topic that's discussed when we're around one another, so
Okay,
it's fine.
Well, it's interesting, Autumn, because Leslie and I have had this conversation on the show actually, and that it's so interesting to us that people do not see those prophets as being psychics, and how we're like, hey, it is no different. It's actually the same thing. I think they really think they had that physical conversation with with God or with Jesus or whatever. And it's so interesting to us that we're like, okay, call it a prophet or call it a psychic. It's all the same thing.
Hmm.
especially if it comes from the same place.
Yeah.
There's probably people who are psychic who get their information from something else,
Hmm.
but most people believe they get it from a higher source,
Hmm.
God, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's all, I mean, as long as you believe that, then I think it's all coming from the good.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's different, and we all have a different upbringing, and we all kind of inherit our faith. You come
Hmm.
across the small population that convert to a different religion, but for the most part, we're born into whatever religion we have, and we are groomed from a very young age to believe in whatever it is that our community believes in.
Hmm.
And I think that there's just this really like integral dogmatic thought process that we are conditioned to own as truth, and it's difficult to see beyond that when it's such an ingrained integral part of your entire livelihood. um, and also different sects of different religions have different positions. Like the Mormons, they believe in psychics and prophets, and but I know that some people whom I'm close to who grew up Baptist in the South, that might be considered heretical. So, everyone it's just different, and
Yeah.
it, I don't think you can ever lump any experience or any person into one category or one phenomenon. I think it's going to be variable with each individual because everyone has their own personal relationship with God.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about who you are.
okay.
Tell me, and so I went to your website. You have a list of all kinds of things that you do. I know
Right.
what I came to you originally for,
Hmm.
but you have grown as a person since
Hmm.
I first met you.
Right.
So let's start from the beginning, and then let's go to who you are now, if you wouldn't mind explaining some of that.
Sure. So, over 40 years ago, there was a man and a woman, and they fell in love. No, I'm kidding.
Did they fall in love? And they're still like,
They did fall in love.
okay, good.
Yeah. I was born and raised in the Portland metropolitan area. I'm a third generation Portlander, possibly 5 or 6 generation Oregonian. So some deep roots here. Raised Christian, raised going to a Lutheran church twice a week, every Wednesday, every Sunday. And at one point in time, my mom was like coming to my siblings and I and saying, "Do you want to go to church anymore?" We all said no. And she all asked for our reasons. We all gave her our answers, and we stopped going to church. And as an adult, even it was actually recently I found out why she had chosen not to go to church, and that's her story. But we stopped when I was about 14, and my whole life growing up, I prayed and I had a close relationship with God, and I always felt there was something more that I couldn't access easily. Like I always felt it, I could always sense it, but it was like, how do I get from here where I'm at, where I feel separate from it, to where I don't feel separate from it? And so, as a teenager, I went to my mom. I was like, what is this? And she gave me a book. It was called Ask Your Angel. And I forget the author. And it was a book about the order of the angelic realm and how to meditate to connect with angels and your guardian angels. And from there, I just started meditating and started astral projecting. And, as you move from adolescence and your period of being a juvenile into adulthood, there's some transitions that happen. And so my spiritual practice went to the wayside for the beginning of my adulthood, and then had some rough lessons and did what I had to do, and then came back to it in my mid-20s. Started meditating 3 times a day, started getting like information about people, and then I was reading a book in a bookstore that doesn't exist anymore. And I saw a flyer on a 3-day workshop on how to do a traditional spirit journey to meet your spirit guides and your power animals. And I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. So I did that. And I learned a traditional, like, indigenous spirit journey, and I communicated with my spirit guides. And once that happened, like, everything kind of took off. Once I knew how to get to that place that I've always felt, but I didn't know how to get there, I was like seeing information about people, not necessarily willy-nilly, but like
was it like a guided meditation that got you there?
It was a guided meditation. It's not even a guided meditation. It's kind of like you set an intention, you in your mind go to the sacred place that you create, which is a real place on earth. It has to be some place that's special to you.
Okay.
Or meaningful.
Yeah. And
through that space, you create some sort of portal, and you move between the upper and the middle and the lower worlds to communicate with spirit guides.
But I didn't know that you went to that place every time to connect to the spirit world. So is that what you're telling me?
That's where I began. There's multiple dimensions, multiple places, spaces, and times. And that is just one avenue to a particular dimension.
And I'm guessing the more you practice, you won't have to go to those extents to connect anymore.
Right. And so I don't even do that anymore unless I feel called specifically to go to the lower world or the middle world or the upper world. And I would say that the upper world can be similar to, I don't know, the heavens, if you want to compare it to that, but it's really different. And I started doing readings for friends, and then friends referred me to other friends, and friends referred me to other friends. And then the more I did it, the more I meditated, the more I realized I didn't need to journey. It was just automatically coming whenever I would get in alignment with someone. And so then I started being taught by different spirit guides that would start coming to me. And now all that I do is just like kind of open up my energy field. I pray, I call in protection, I call in spirit guides, I connect with a person, and just information flows automatically. So I don't have to, at this point in my practice, make an intentional spiritual journey. It was just kind of like the floodgate that allowed me to get to where I needed to be in order to get to where I wanted to go. And as my process evolved, I was able to see people's energies with my psychic vision. I could do medical intuitive information, and then I could see people's chakras. And then I one time had a woman come in to get a reading. She's like, well, I came to see you because I wanted to communicate with my husband who recently departed. I'm like, oh, well, I don't do that. I'm sorry. And then all of a sudden he's there and he's telling me like very specific things. I'm like, so, okay, what about this? And she's like, oh my God, that's totally him. So things just evolved. So the more you're in that frequency, the more you're in that space, the more comes to you, the greater you open up, the more your vibration expands and can also contain. So it just kind of evolved from there. And I was, in and out of college throughout my entire, early adulthood. And I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I kind of fell into Chinese medicine, and then I became a licensed acupuncturist, and so I blend in my practice of Chinese medicine with the spiritual stuff, so you can come in and get a reading and acupuncture at the same time.
Like you might think you're coming in for one thing, and it
Mhm.
could totally turn into something different.
Yeah,
And do you tell people that, like coming
Yeah.
in, like I really think you would benefit from this instead of this?
Right. So people will come in and they're like, "Well, what should I expect?" I'm like, "I don't know. It's different every time."
Yeah.
So we'll just figure it out.
Do they come in with an intention, like this has been bothering me,
Yeah, they do.
and then it changes?
So sometimes they come in with an intention. Sometimes they come in just being like, "I just saw your website and I knew I needed to see you." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, cool. Let's figure it
Yeah.
out." And when I have clients that are regular clients, like Karen, you brought up, like I kind of just, when she gets here, I'm just like, "What do you want to do today? What are we talking
Yeah.
about?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I thought," da, da." I'm like, "Okay, let's do it."
Yeah.
So it is individual. It is unique. Um, and with this type of work that I've done, like what's evolved is I kind of specialize in trauma. So that's what has been really interesting, is that my spirit guides have pretty much taught me everything that I know, from shamanic soul retrievals to narrative rewrites to renegotiating soul contracts to working in the Akashic records to healing ancestral trauma, healing karma. I've done soul retrievals from future timelines, which is always interesting. It's really fun.
So what kind of trauma are you looking at here? Anything?
Everything.
Okay.
So the benefit of being an acupuncturist is I have the education, the experience, and the skills to be able to treat like musculoskeletal or biochemical or physiological trauma that we can help to reset and reorganize in the body.
You also rattled off, like, I don't know how many things, 6 or 7 things that I don't think most of our listeners even know what they mean.
So a soul retrieval is, if you think about our souls are eternal and infinite. We are fractals of God compressed into this body to have this experience that we call life. And the whole purpose of this experiment, if you want to call it that, is to expand the consciousness of the collective, to expand the consciousness of God. God is the overarching awareness of all that is. We are all composites of God. And because we are all composites of God, we all have the same capacities and abilities and functions of God. We just, through this filtered experience of humanity, forget that we have those capacities and those abilities and those functions. So when we experience something, it interacts with our soul and our spirit. It's all vibrational medicine. It's all vibrational experiences. It's all energy exchanges. So when we go through a traumatic event, like everything else, it has a vibration or frequency associated with it. So when we're traumatized, that vibration hits our soul. And so when we feel hurt, we feel that, right? We feel it in our chest, we feel it in our belly, we feel it in our throat, we feel it somewhere. And if that vibration of that trauma is strong enough, it can fracture our soul. And that soul fracture can even break away and get lodged in the infinite time loop of that experience, because time is just a dimension that overlays our reality. God and the universe and our souls don't exist within time. We are timeless. So time is just a way to capture a moment. And so our broken soul part will be lodged in that moment perpetually throughout time, while we, as a soul body connection, living under the dimension of a space time continuum, move linearly. We might go through therapy, we might go through physical therapy, we might go through, whatever it is that we go through to heal from whatever our past experiences are. But that piece of us is still lodged in a loop on repeat of I'm being traumatized, I'm being traumatized, I'm being traumatized, I'm being traumatized over and over and over again. And so you don't have the capacity to fully heal 100% when a piece of you is reliving that event eventually, infinitely. So that's when you witness people who don't ever get over a death in the family, or don't ever get over an accident, or don't ever get over an assault or something to that effect. They're stuck there. So with spirit guides, with your own higher consciousness, with my ability to interpret that information, I'm able to move consciously through space and time, extract that soul piece from that event, heal it, bless it, return it back to the person, and integrate it back so that they can actually heal completely, not just cognitively. So then that can shift how they react and respond to things, how they can change their vibration so they can attract different things into their lives. So that's one phenomenon of healing that I am able to facilitate in my practice.
You describe things very visually. Do you
Mm-hmm.
see them visually? You said you take out the broken piece, you described doing something to it, and then you put it back in. So you described it very visually. I'm a visual person, so I was like right there with you. And I've never heard somebody, especially from the spirit world, talking about it so visually. Do you see it visually? Do you see this thing? You said
Do you
you
hear?
see auras.
You are so astute. That is the first time anyone has mentioned that. And yes, it's like 3D visualization for me. It's like anime. It's super visual. And I'm a visual learner. Like I can learn in all faculties, but like really if I see it, I got it. If I hear
Yeah.
it, I might have to listen to it a few times before I get it. So yeah, I'm a very visual person.
Okay. That you said it so visually that I really felt
Or
like
you can see
you
it while
must
you're
see it.
talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, we're on the same wavelength, girlfriend. We're
Yeah.
right there together.
Yeah.
There's this whole code of ethics for energy workers and psychics. Like you don't do anything without somebody's consent. I can't even tell you how many times I've worked on people without them ever knowing it. And it's not because I'm trying to be sneaky or deceptive. It's because a lot of times people don't know how to ask for help or they don't know they need for help. And so I bypass their human consciousness and I go straight to their higher consciousness. And I'm like, higher consciousness of person, you know, A, may I please work on your field so that you can be happier and healthier and better? And I will only do that which is within your highest benefit. And I have only been told no twice, ever.
Whoa, you're blowing my mind. So if I came to you and I said, "Hey, my best friend is stuck with A, B, and C, bad lover, whatever," you could actually reach out to their higher consciousness?
Yeah. So
So the
like
person that you got the no, it wasn't like a physical no, it was their spiritual
their psychic
no.
no,
Okay.
yeah.
And it was very clear. It
It
was
was
like,
like, oh yeah, I can't work with this person, and that's fine. And some people, you know, if they have their own spiritual practice and they're very versed in the etheric realms, they have such strong protective fields up that even if it is within their higher self to work with them, I can't access them. But and again, that's very unusual, but it does happen. And their higher self is like, no, we're good with it. They've made a choice that they're not going to receive this. I'm like, okay.
Okay, so Autumn, off topic slightly. I know you're still going through these amazing superpowers that you have, but does this ever, when you just listen to yourself, go, "Whoa"?
Yeah. And thank you for the flattery of calling them superpowers, but really this is something that all of us can do. It's
No, not all of us have the ability at this point, Autumn.
right, right. So it's I compare it to like playing a piano, right? Any person, you know, can sit down and hit the keys on the piano, but not everyone is like able to sit down and play masterfully, right? So some people are born a Mozart or born a Bach and they have that natural affinity and they just go in that direction. And some of us are athletes, but we also love music, so we're going to put in the time, put in the effort, do the lessons, and we're going to learn to play masterfully. But we may never fully achieve to be a Bach or Mozart, but we can play all of their music well. So it's everyone has their own gifts and their own talents, and everyone has the capacity to do this. It's really just about putting the time and the energy into the effort into developing the skill set basically, and then also your natural affinity is like how easily does it come to you, just like anything else, whether it's whether you're an intellect studying math, whether you're a baseball player, whether you play a musical instrument. Everyone has their own affinity towards different things.
So I have always had this theory, and I'd like to run this by you. People who are savants, or like, they're three and they're playing Bach or Mozart or whatever, like Mozart. Sorry, I think I said Mark. Anyways, that they don't get completely erased when they come back down. Like they had this in a past life, like they had this ability, and now they've come back down in a new body and they just weren't completely erased. Do you think that's at all true? I've never had anybody agree with me.
I think that's 100% true. So there's kind of a common knowledge, and I don't know of a source where this originated from, but we all have a pretty direct connection with God until about three. Once we hit about three, that starts to dissipate a little bit, and I personally, my theory is that that has to do with, it's around three that we become fluent in language, right? So we no longer have to depend upon emoting our needs, emoting our communication, and the language of God is emotion. And so if you're a toddler and you're not fluent in language yet, your primary mode of communication is the same mode of communication as the heavens, as God in the universe. So I sense that the reason why we lose that spontaneous, clear, direct connection to God around age three is because we shift the mode of our communication. But yeah, I absolutely think that they're coming in with their memories intact. In fact, I have a client who contacted me recently saying, so my child just told me in their previous life that they were person, X, and that when they were person X, they did X, Y, and Z, and yada yada. And so my client looked up that individual, was a real person, did the things that their 3 or 4 year old was telling them that they were doing. Then this person, while they were looking up the individual their child had told them they were, had a picture of that individual, and their child came up to them and said, "Oh yeah, that's me." But I think that because the consciousness is elevating and shifting so much so radically right now, I think the newer generations are coming in automatically at that elevated vibration and consciousness, and they are coming in fully intact with their memories.
So you actually think it's a generational thing? You think people are more open to it now than, say, 100 years ago?
I think it's a spiritual thing. I don't necessarily.
Okay.
I think that we're seeing it in the generation because of the evolution of our consciousness. So we're in a state of consciousness and spiritual evolution right now that will allow our generations coming in to hold on to those previous memories. Whereas I think the vibration and the consciousness that we had 100 years ago wouldn't allow for that. And even if you were to do like an autopsy of the human brain right now, the physiological components of the brain today is different than the physiological components of a brain 150 years ago. Our brain is radically changing. So even on a physical spectrum, we're radically evolving exponentially. Do I think that children had the capacity to come in fully connected with memories of previous lives? I mean, sure, I think anything's possible. I just don't think it was prevalent 15, 20 years ago. I don't think it's that as a society, we're more nurturing of a phenomenon. I just think that the phenomenon is more prevalent, and therefore, and it's more prevalent because we are more open. So I don't think it was as prevalent 20 years ago. I think it's more prevalent now, and I think it's more prevalent now because of the elevated consciousness. So I can't
I'm so
say
technical. Like I
yeah.
want to figure it out. I want it's hard for me to like see it more visually and
Mm-hmm.
in the bigger picture.
Right.
And I'm trying to and I've just realized this. I should have known this about myself all along. And I think that's why it's so difficult for me to really understand it all.
Another phrase that as you're getting older, I say, if you don't use it, you lose it. And then, like, as kids get older, they're either socialized not to listen to it, or they just evolve, but they stop honing that, or they never do hone it from the time they come in. Is
That there's a huge spectrum of how that presents. So some children shut it down because it's not nurtured, but they always feel it, they always sense it, and then it manifests in things like social anxiety, depression and anxiety, some sort of mental health disorder, some sort of learning disorder. So when they are forced to suppress all of these things that they feel and all of these things that they're experiencing because their family unit or their community or their society cannot help them integrate that, it manifests in all of these other dysfunctions. Or, parents say, oh, that's just your imagination, or oh, that's not real, or we don't do that. And then the children just ignore it and block it out. And then they proceed as a happy, healthy kid, not paying attention to that.
Well,
With
and
that
to your
factor in
point,
household.
Autumn, I have long believed that we tell our kids, especially our girls, be nice, be nice. You know, my daughter would she just has really strong gut reactions towards people, towards situations. And I, for some reason, read something a long time ago that, you know, that could be her gut keeping her safe. And, you know, that she should embrace that. If she doesn't feel comfortable with somebody, or somebody's around and she doesn't feel comfortable, she should not just play nice because she's a girl and that's what she's supposed to do. She should trust her gut. And if her gut says, you know what, I don't want to be around this person, get away from that person. Too often we say, well, you're being rude. That's not nice. I think what I'm hearing you say is those things, as we nurture children, sometimes we're turning off their intuitive side because it doesn't fit our idea of politeness or kindness or whatever.
On a general, just a glossed over direct answer, yes, that's true. But then you also have to, as a parent, be mindful of like how much of this is my daughter, picking up on this is just this one person, or these like individual, like random moments, and but yet she's socializing really well in other situations, or how much of this is just like downright lack of social interaction, her totally shutting down when she's asked to engage in normal dynamics. And so that's when you have to balance as a parent, right? Like paying attention to like how much of this is a dysfunction and how much of this is her intuition coming into play and being able to make safe choices for herself. So direct answer, yes, that's correct. More nuances, like you just as a person, even whether it's your own child, whether it's with another adult, you just have to pay attention to like the whole picture. And
it's not clear cut is what you're saying.
Right, it's not clear cut. You have to ask, you have to be inquisitive, and you have to ask questions. You have to be like, okay, why are you doing this, or why is this happening, or why are you reacting this way? And you want to ask the kid, and it could be something as like, if you're like, hey, why don't you want to play with this person? Like, oh, well, because I just don't like them. Well, can you tell me why? And like, if it's like, well, because they wouldn't give me a cookie. Well, okay, well now you're just doing that, right?
Yeah.
That's not an intuition thing. That's just like you're just mad. So that's when you have to just be really exploratory, right?
So let's talk about how did you know that you wanted to do acupuncture? How did that lead from where you were, because you were successful in that, and then to where you are now, and what you actually do in these? She has 2 different offices, 2 different rooms that she's working in this really nice building towards downtown Portland. And I want to know the majority of what people come to you for.
Okay.
And talk about like the different services that you provide here in your offices.
Okay. The evolution of my spiritual practice and services evolved while I was pursuing my education in Chinese medicine. So I started doing readings around age 27. And I was finishing my undergrad. Actually, I graduated my undergrad in when I was 31 or 32. And so that's when I was like still doing it for friends and working in corporate world. And I wanted to be a naturopathic doctor. Is what I really wanted to do.
Yeah. You should do that. It's just more school and more money.
Just, right.
Amazing.
Right.
So I wanted to be a naturopathic doctor, which I didn't even know was an option to me. So like when I was 18, I was on my way home from work and I took the bus and I had to transfer, and I had an hour and a half delay between the next bus. So I went into what was Wild Oats back then, which then later became what is now New Seasons.
Which was originally Nature's.
Was it Nature's first and then Wild Oats?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I worked there.
Yeah. Okay.
I worked in a spa there.
Okay, got it. So and I'd never been in a Wild Oats before. And I was like, I'll get like something to drink and a snack and whatever. And then there was a whole book section. And back then I still don't even own a television. I was always reading a book. So I went to the book section and I saw how like this herb treats acne and this herb treats asthma and this herb treats us. And I was fascinated. And I ended up being in the store for 4 hours. Just reading
Missed
all
your
of
bus?
this stuff. And then I was like, crap. So then I got a cab home because there was no more buses. So, anyways, I didn't know that a naturopathic doctor was a thing. And so I was just going to school. I had several majors like electrical engineering, math, biology, business accounting. I had several uh,
Very physical world
incarnations.
stuff.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very science founded.
Yeah.
Like my strengths has always been in science. And so then I finally discovered I want to be a naturopath, and so I was trying really hard to go to like get what I needed to get done in undergrad in order to go to doctorate school. And I went to interview with the admissions office with NUNM, and they're like, yeah, why don't you come in and why don't you shadow a clinic shift? And so I did, and I was a junior at Portland State, and all of the doctoral students were nasty to me. They were just rude. And the clinic supervisor noticed that. And after a while, the clinic supervisor was like, why don't you just like follow me when I go in with the student, the doctor students, instead of going in with them on your own. I was like, okay. And so I did. And, the supervisor would consult with me and be like, so what do you think is going on with this person? I'm like, oh, well, I think it's this and this and this. She's like, I totally agree with you. What homeopathic remedy would you offer them? I'm like, I have no idea. And she just went, okay. Any herbal? I'm like, I have no idea. And after a few
Because
times
you hadn't gone through anything.
no, right. I'm like, I have no
Like,
idea.
how would you have known any of that?
Right.
You're just going through, okay.
Right. And so she's just looking at me like, there's something wrong with me. And I'm like, okay. But she's agreeing with my like quote diagnosis or my opinion. And so then at the end of at one point, she's just like, what year are you? And she's like, I don't understand why you don't know the homeopathic remedies and the herbal remedies. And like, I'm like, oh, well, I'm a junior at Portland State University. And her jaw dropped open. And she's like, I thought you were a junior here at the naturopathic college. And I was like, no. And she's like, okay, when you're ready to come here, let me know. I'll write you a personal letter of recommendation. I'm like, okay, cool. And so then I still was wanting to explore it because that was not an ideal experience for me. And so I went to the school.
But it was somewhat positive.
It was positive reinforcement,
yes.
Absolutely. But the experience with the students was not ideal. So then I went back and went to their lounge area, and I was just like, hey, I don't go to school here. I just was wondering, like, it was my day off. I'm like, I was just wondering if I was thinking about coming here, if a few of you would like be willing to talk to me about your experience here and what you think about going to school here. And all of the naturopathic students snubbed me. And all of the Chinese medical students were super nice.
Why is that, you think? Like, looking back now.
I'll get to that.
Okay.
So they were just so nice and so excited and happy to talk to me. And I was just in the hallway at NUNM, and I'm like, what the heck? And then I simply just sat there and I asked myself, well, what about Chinese medicine? And my whole body started to vibrate. And like, I got disoriented, like somebody was like shaking me. And I was like, oh, okay, this is God's way of telling me I need to do Chinese medicine, not naturopathic medicine. So I have many naturopathic friends and clients that are naturopathic physicians and studying that medicine. They're all lovely people. I just think my personal experience needed to be that. Okay. So I could figure out where I needed to go.
That's how the perception of it coming through to lead you in the direction that you needed to go.
Right. And so then from there I went to naturopathy.
What I love about that too, Autumn, is that really focuses on energy and energy flowing through your body, and you being so energy focused outside of bodies. I think that really pairs up really, really nicely.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was something that I discovered even looking into it. So then, like, I started reading some recommended books to kind of get you kind of familiar with the medicine. And one is called The Web That Has No Weaver. And it's all about traditional Chinese medicine. And as I was reading, I'm like, oh, this supports this belief system. This supports this belief. This supports my experience. Like, everything was just like a validator. When I was reading the book, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally going into Chinese medicine.
Yeah. So. I remember when you were finishing and you were super stressed and you were like studying like crazy. And...
It was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. My degree is technically 6 credits shy of a PhD.
Yeah.
But it's not a PhD. So that's what it is.
Yeah. So Is this your soul contract?
Oh, wow. That's a great question.
Is there more to your soul contract? Have you not fulfilled it yet?
I haven't fulfilled it yet. I have an idea of what my soul contract is as far as like being here incarnate. I know my path is to be a healer.
Which we already know you're doing.
Right, which I'm actively doing. Yes. I know that I have more to do, and I have many other projects that I have like conceptually birthed but have yet to put them into like the physical world. But I had a memory in meditation come back to me where I was in outer space looking at the earth, and I was part of a group called the Galactic Federation in this meditation. And this is as humanity was starting to come onto the surface of the earth for the first time. And there was a masculine energy to my right and a feminine energy to my left, and we were communicating telepathically. And the masculine energy says to me telepathically, "Do you know what you just signed up for?" And I said, "Yes." And the female energy says telepathically to me, "Will you repeat to us what you're committing to so that we all know what you're committing to?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, I promise to be there for the duration." Looking at the planet.
That's pretty big.
And I was just like, and in memory, I'm like, I just signed up to be on Earth as a human being
to the end.
From the conception to the end. And I was like, oh my God. Like,
it makes you tired right away. Like there's no rest in between. You're just busy.
I mean, you don't just come back. I mean,
yeah.
you have some reprieve, right? But I'm like, you know, a lot of people that I know are like, I'm not coming back to this planet. This is my last life. I'm done. And I'm like, I remember that commitment. I remember that oath. I remember that moment. And what I felt in that commitment. And I have to tell you, I'm excited. I can remember why. Like, I can't articulate it, but I remembered the reason, the feeling of the reason why I made that commitment. But I remember the knowing of why it was so important.
Yeah.
And I remember how it was just a gift to come down and be here. And to be able to remember from that plane of consciousness, that excitement, it, I think, has been a huge blessing for me anyways.
Yeah.
So how did that change you, Autumn? Obviously, this is like so hard for my brain to wrap around. In just accepting it, how from that point on did that change your outlook and your determination here as you're going towards your life purpose in this lifetime?
Honestly, not a tremendous amount, because at the time that I had that remembrance, I was already in a good space. I was in my last year at Chinese medical school. My practice as a healer and a psychic and a spiritual practitioner was thriving. I had great friends. My relationship with my family was solid. I was happy. And yeah, I mean, things like, you know, COVID-19 and all of the distress around the Black Lives Matter movement, and, you know, the political environment and what's happening to our planet. I mean, all those things are incredibly stressful. And if you spend too much time in any of those, it can bring anybody down. But I remember that there's beauty in those things, because those are the catalysts for change. And so even though they're hard and they're disenchanting and they're just downright awful, you have to unearth what's not working in order to fix it. So I just kind of look at it from that perspective. It's like, you know, everything of value, everything worth having is worth work.
Okay, so take this as a compliment, but Leslie, are you feeling a little small, like we need to step up our game?
I think we just have more work to do.
That's exactly all it is.
Yeah, I just think that we too can figure out. I mean, I don't think I signed up for a whole like. Maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe that's why we're here, Melissa. But we all have something, and maybe we just need to figure out what our soul contracts were and what our What's the big picture? I do want to talk about your services that you provide here.
Okay.
How people can get a hold of you,
Okay.
where you're exactly located, or the best way to make an appointment with you.
Got it. My professional home is currently at 4004 South Kelly Avenue, Suite 106, Portland, Oregon 97239. Excuse me. My cellular number is 503-709-6226. I have one website, but I have two different URLs to it. So you can go to autumnedwards.com, which will show up as anahatamedicine.com. So anahata is Sanskrit for the heart chakra. So that's A, N as in Nancy, A, H as in Henry, A, T as in Timothy, A. And the best way to make an appointment is to go to my website and just schedule online. It's super easy. It's like 3 clicks and you're done.
And are they signing up for a very specific appointment, or is there like, I don't know what I want, just sign me up for an hour or however?
Right. At the moment, and I'm going to be going through some professional evolutions in the next month. So right now, it's either acupuncture by itself or all the services. And since it's hard to know what a person needs, like I don't expect them to be able to cherry pick what they want. So just like you come here, we'll figure it out when you get here.
Are they all basically the same amount of time? So it can shift depending on that?
At the moment, they're slotted for an hour, and then I buffer a half an hour in between each appointment, so there's time if we need more time. One of the evolutions is that I'm going to start staggering patients so that I have more of a work-life balance, as well as be able to make myself more available to people. And so I'm going to make the appointments about 80 to 90 minutes. And so I'm going to turn over my treatment rooms every 90 minutes. And I'll be with a person for half an hour, and then I'll go be with another person for half an hour, and then I'll come back and finish up for half an hour, and then go back for half an hour. So people will get a full hour of devoted service from me. It's just going to be for like 1/2 an hour during that hour and a half time span. I'm going to be in another room with somebody else.
Well, if you're doing acupuncture, they have to sit anyway.
Right. And so I'm going to be getting things like biomats. I'm going to be getting red light therapy. So people can put that over their face and have like collagen genesis. I'm actually just got trained in micro needling, so for cosmetic purposes. So I'm going to bring that into the mix.
So you really have a unique practice. Are you training others? Because I think there's really something here to this. I really applaud you. I feel like, why has nobody else thought of this? But are you training others to kind of follow in your footsteps?
Because we would be like in your class.
Not yet, but so part of what I'm doing is I wrote a book in my brain 10 years ago, and I finally started putting it down on quote paper about 7 months ago. And so I'm in the process of writing my book, and it's a text. Basically, it's a textbook for this stuff. And so it's my textbook for this. And so
for psychic stuff or for
yeah. And
I think I need that textbook style.
Get it done.
Yes. Okay.
So
would a workbook go along with it?
I will probably have to create one, but I do plan on creating like a class module to match it. I'm starting my own podcast, and it's going to be a plethora of my healing tone frequencies that I sing, guided meditations, educational conversations, things like that. And it's really just, it's going to be focused really on like my experiences, what I've learned. And if I even incorporate that, for the moment, it's actually just going to be the healing tones that I do along with guided meditations. But I'm thinking about incorporating like discussions with it. I don't know, maybe.
One of the things that we're trying to do that, Leslie is at the forefront of really pushing in our podcast is opening people's eyes to other ways of thinking and the acceptance that there's other things and other abilities and other things we don't understand, but we want to learn about in the world.
Right. Yeah. And I think the beautiful way that that's coming through is that you're not discounting or dismissing any other thing in the process. You're not like saying,
"Oh, open to all."
Right. You're not like saying, "Oh, well, that way is not really viable because of this thing over here. You're like, no, these are all of the things.
Yes.
Well, and
And
Autumn, to your point, I'm actually like in awe of all the different things and abilities and ways that people connect and how they connect and then how those things also connect.
mm-hmm.
Like that's just awe-inspiring to me. It just blows me away at these things.
Well, and if you wanted to get really grand about it, it's all of those little things that you can kind of go, oh, well, we are all just each other. We all are the same thing. We're all
Yeah.
from the same place. Like we are all connected, and we're just like, different actors in the same play, or we're just different things of the same thing. It's kind of like, you know, there's
Yeah.
different species of apples, and they're
Yeah.
all amazing.
Yeah. Just trying to get people to remember.
Hmm.
Remember where we came from.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to hear the whole interview with Autumn Edwards, you can do that by joining our Patreon on our website. Also, you can get in touch with her by going to her website, which is anahadamedicine.com. Thanks again for listening. Oh, and one last thing. If you want to join the Suzanne Jocka Show next week, you can also sign up for free on our website. There is a page. It's called the Suzanne Jocka Show. Go ahead and sign up there. Thank you. Hey, Melissa, what kind of bras do you wear?
Oh my gosh, I wear handful bras.
Tell me why you love them so much. You talk about them all the time, and I just want to understand what is so great about them.
Well, I love them because they're comfortable. They are not constricting, so I can still like breathe and move around. And I like to do yoga too, and I like to stretch. And I do not like a bra that is just like sucking me in so that I'm so flat and can't breathe. I love the patterns. I love the different styles. Right now, they have this really cute, like teal color, and they've done a couple patterns in it too. And they have this wavy one, which I can't even remember the name because they have absolutely adorable names for these things. But they have the adjustable bra, which is their classic. They have the closer bra, which is great for people like you that have a little more than a handful. It's got the two little hooks and then it zips up. And my favorite pattern right now is the ripple effect, is what it's called. And then I love the double down, which is a really cute new style that they have. And I love their leggings because I think they made them for me because they're so long. And they have a cute camo legging that I wear all the time.
I have those too. Brandy gave me a pair.
Oh my gosh, I
I do
love them.
have to say, I have like a bunch of handful bras. I could not find them, and I found them in my daughter's room. She wears them all the time, and they are so cute. She almost could wear them as swimsuits. In fact, I think she does. Like she'll
Yep.
sunbathe in them because they are so cute. And I love when she wears like her tank tops, but you can see the bra strap kind of through it because they have the really cool crisscross and different designs. You can adjust them however you want, and I just think they're very flattering.
Yeah. And you got your first one. How's your first one?
I love it. No, I had them in the past, and then, for me, I needed a little bit more, and then they came out with this new one with the extra zip in it, and it really makes a big difference, and I love that it actually gives you 2, not just 1, and that's always been a problem in the past. You just get this, like, 1 mono boob. I actually still have 2 when I wear this new design that you had given me, so thank you, Melissa.
You're so welcome. Well, we do still have a handful code, as I recall.
We still do?
I think so. If not, we'll get it
That's like
updated.
20% off. Why aren't people buying these off the shelf?
I don't know. I don't know. They should be.
What is that code? Melissa, tell
That
me.
that code is Salon Sleuths. Gosh, you're putting me on the spot now,
I
Leslie.
think it's just Salon Sleuths. If you go
Yeah.
to the coupon code, it's just Salon Sleuths.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
But you have to spell sleuths right.
yes. And I'm part of this podcast, and I spelled it wrong when I made your first tank top. It did not. I was thought that was so stupid of me. But how do you spell it, Melissa?
You spell it SALONSLEUTHS. Go to handful.com, check them out. You'll be a fan for life.